So shall I welcome Vinny, our DG for the third department? Vinny, if you want to join us on stage.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Busek Glenda from DevDep. I was just telling the USEC, I'm still a NEDA guy. I'm the Secretary of Paris, Department of Agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, government officials, private sector, a very good afternoon to you. Very glad, very excited actually to welcome you to the launch of the PPP Monitor for the Philippines. That is a flagship knowledge product for us at the ADB. It tracks the progress in the PPP environment here in the Philippines. It identifies challenges and it highlights opportunities, including in one of the in the Philippines, which has developed itself, become really one of the most established and dynamic PPP markets in the region. So we do these monitors in other countries as well, but in the Philippines it is very special because the Philippines is special. I should say not only because our headquarters is here, but also because it is home to most of ADB stuff. We call it home, and it is ADB's largest or second largest, depending on the year, borrower on the sovereign side. It is also talking about PPPs. Philippines is has the highest number of the largest client for PPP transaction advisory services, and we are increasingly ramping up our work also with private sector on a non-sovereign basis. But this is today not only a launch of a knowledge product, but this is a roundtable, and this is really we're going to discuss how we can work together in the Philippines to further strengthen the PPP environment, and work together to attract investment, private sector investment, both domestic and international, to the Philippines. So a report is only as good as a report it can be, but really what do we make from the report, from the recommendations? How do we take it to the next level? That's what we are here for. So we have worked very closely in the Asian Development Bank with the PPP Center, other institutions as well for many years on the PPP agenda, ranging our collaboration on the PPP front, ranging from reforms, major infrastructure projects, the Base Conversion Development Authority, BCDA, for example, but also more recently, we approved a project development and monitoring facility with the PPP Center, which is designed to help government agencies to bring to market well-prepared and bankable projects. Agriculture is a important and timely focus. It is a priority for the government. It's a priority for the Asian Development Bank. We, together with the Department of Agriculture and other partners, have been engaging with the private sector in ventures such as, for example, Dali supermarket chain. We are exploring opportunities in aquaculture and fishing ports, etc. So lots of opportunities by bringing all of us, all of you together here today around the common agenda that we have. I hope the discussions will spark new ideas and practical strategies for advancing the PPP agenda in the country and especially in the agriculture sector. I just want to close by acknowledging and thanking all the partners in the Philippines for the close collaboration, Department of Agriculture, DevDep, PPP Center, Department of Finance, all our colleagues in government and private sector, all of you. Your collaboration is really essential for our shared agenda that we're discussing today. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to call also Useg Glenda from DevDev for the opening remark. Thank you.
Good afternoon to our distinguished guests and colleagues from the Asian Development Bank, the Public-Private Partnership Center of the Philippines, the Department of Agriculture. I think we also have from the Department of Energy and DSUD. And of course, our esteemed participants from various local government units and local universities and colleges. On behalf of Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan of the Department of Economy, Planning, and Development, so that's DepDev for short. I know it's a little bit of a tongue twister, but we will get used to it. It is my honor to join you for the launch of the 2025 ADB PPP Monitor for the Philippines. This updated, data-driven, and interactive PPP Monitor is a flagship publication of the ADB. It serves as a vital tool not only in tracking the evolving landscape of PPPs in the Philippines, but also as a diagnostic resource for policymakers and development partners alike, as well as an investment due diligence tool for infrastructure investors. This year's edition is especially significant as it now includes the agriculture sector, a critical area that the Philippine government has identified as a priority in our development agenda. If you were able to watch the recent State of the Nation address of the President, he specifically and expressly mentioned agriculture and food security. Agriculture plays a central role in ensuring food security, generating rural employment, and reducing poverty. Yet it continues to face challenges in production, infrastructure, and market access. We are immensely grateful for ADB's continued support in this direction by strategically leveraging PPPs in this sector. We aim to attract investments that can strengthen agricultural value chains, enhance productivity, and improve the livelihoods of our Filipino farmers and fisherfolk. We look forward to continuing our collaboration in developing robust, bankable, and sustainable PPP projects, not only in traditional infrastructure, but also in sectors that directly impact the well-being of our people. Thank you, and we wish you a successful launch and insightful panel discussion ahead.
Thank you. So I'm Isabel from the Office of Market Development and PPP. And along with Tavidel, actually, we develop the PPP monitor. Sorry. Oh, okay. So as mentioned by Vinny and Useg Glenda, the PPP monitor is indeed a flagship knowledge product of the Asian Development Bank. And we have conceived this product as a comprehensive reference document of developing members' country PPP environment. It has detail on PPP regulatory and legal framework at the national and local level, on policies, and also a detailed analysis of sectors. Sectors that are covered in the monitor include transport, energy, water, wastewater, solid waste, health, education, housing, ICT, and financial sector. And for the first time, and for Philippines, it includes agriculture and fishery. The reason for that is because we've aligned the document with a country partnership strategy between Philippines and ADB, which highlight the catalytic role of private sector in food security. We have currently 9 countries who have a monitor, plus 3 in preparation: Mongolia, Uzbekistan, and Cambodia. How do we choose them? We actually identify them at the country partnership strategy discussion, and we try to see whether there is any potential for PPP or any potential to help the market grow through this knowledge product. A very important point: how do we make sure they are accurate? We usually ask government to verify the document, and in the case of the Philippine PPP sector. The PPP Center help us verify, and we are really grateful for the collaboration. Let's talk a little bit about methodology. I'm not going to read you the full definition, but to be able to compare, and as mentioned earlier, the PPP monitor will help investors in deciding where to put their money. We have tried to adopt a PPP definition that fits across all DMCs, developing member countries. And so in a nutshell, we see a public-private partner and an agreement between the public and private partner, a long-term agreement with a certain risk allocation and remedies and penalties in case of underperformance. So certain type of investment have been excluded, for instance, privatization. And so you can see that there is a slight difference with legal definition of the Philippine law. So I don't know if any of you already read the full documents, but in case you have, we actually welcome comments, because we always want to see whether the private sector, the government, and also within multilaterals are able to benefit, are able to use this knowledge products. So I think all of you may have received an invitation email from me. So feel free to send your comments, and or you can just say that you actually think it's a good product. That will be appreciated. So in terms of structure, they usually structure pretty much the same, all the monitors. We have a certain exception. I mean, obviously, the addition of agriculture and fisheries for Philippines. So it's national landscape, specific sector landscape, and local PPP landscape. In the case of the PPP monitor, I would want to highlight that for the PPP project pipeline, we actually wanted this document to support PPPs in a good way. So the pipeline has been the data coming from the PPP center. So we align actually with what the country wants to do. Sorry. So this slide may look pretty empty, but let me tell you the main conclusion of the monitor, and Vinny somehow also highlighted some of them. PPP has been very successful in developing its, Philippines has been very successful in developing its PPP market. On our side, 305 projects qualified as PPP. And it's even more a success story that, unlike most countries in the world, Philippines has never provided a government guarantee. You can see that on the graph on the right, there is a government support, but it's actually a viability gap funding for a transport project and not a government guarantee. So congratulations to all of you. The PPP market growth has been driven by an active private sector and availability also of liquidity. As we can see on the graph below, though it may not be completely clear, I'll tell you what you can see. 57% of the PPP procurement has been done through unsolicited proposal. So as the capacity of the government and LGO grow, we expect this number of 57 to decrease to the 1 digit, as it is the case of most of PPP market in developed world. On the sector side, PPP have mostly been in the energy and water wastewater sector. We see that there are not that many PPPs in solid waste, where we would expect actually more private sector participation. And so that could be an area of focus and a new PPP monitor launch on this one. And PPP in agriculture and fisheries sector. So they're all local projects, and they have a characteristic, which is the highest rate of cancellation. 25% of the PPPs in the agriculture and fishery have been cancelled. So this is an ideal picture, but actually Philippines took the PPP market one step further by enacting the PPP Code in 2023 and the IRR in 2024. So that will help improve and consolidate the PPP legal framework, address key challenges of implementing PPP project, strengthen the PPP Center, the PPP Governing Board, and the PDMF, and provide a more competitive environment for USP and institutionalized best practice. So, can we say walang problema? Well, actually, not completely. So, we've this is fantastic. Well, sorry. So, oh, this one. So we have identified challenges that we have grouped in 5 thematic areas. First, on the regulatory framework, on the PPP regulatory framework, government payment to the private partner under the PPP contract for contingent liability remain a significant issue, given the rule that government is obliged to pay only under an appropriation law. So there is obviously the risk of the law not being passed. There is also no clear framework in managing the fiscal commitment and contingent liability of the government. On the PPP institutional framework, reforms are needed in sectors where there are fragmented or even conflicting regulation, such as, for example, in the water sector. A regulatory framework should be aligned with the regulatory framework of the PPP Code. We understand that the PPP Code requires regulator to issue guidelines for this purpose. Those are crucial to understand and manage regulatory risk. On the PPP process, some projects saw major change to their project structure, terms and conditions, even before the bidding, and end up with delayed procurement or bidding failure. The PPP Code has introduced mechanisms such as market sounding to address this risk, and we hope it will actually address it. The process for unsolicited proposal, also much improved, is not fully aligned with solicited proposal, mainly given that the original proponent still retain its right to match. On the public sector capacity, absorptive capacity and processes within the implementation agency will need to be improved, while the PPP Center is doing a good job in addressing this capacity issue. And we actually welcome yesterday and today a training from the PPP Center. Implementing agency will have to improve interface and coordination with their internal offices to keep the PPP work moving. Implementing agency should also have appropriate training in evaluating projects and monitoring them. Finally, LGU support to national projects is critical. Delay in permitting and the local assessment of real property tax have become major issues in some of the national projects. In terms of private sector interests, there are challenges that limit private sector interests in PPP, and they continue to be delayed in right-of-way or site acquisition by the government. Political and regulatory risk, especially those involving rate or tariff adjustment. National requirement in some sector, only 13% of PPP have foreign ownership, and unwillingness of implementing agency to enter into a direct agreement with project lenders. And of course, one major risk that is actually not on this slide, which is climate change, and the need to properly assess any PPP's structure before processing. So if I understand all that. What do we do at ADB? We actually support on the capacity building side. We've been in close partnership with the PPP Center. We've also started doing training to local government units. We've been helping on the regulatory and institutional reform, among other with the development of the PPP Code. And so it's not actually ADB support, it's OMDB support. And also, we've been helping the government via the provision of transaction advisory services to properly structure and tender project. So, as mentioned, the PPP monitor is about comparison across country also. And so we've taken the case of Kazakhstan, Indonesia, Pakistan, and Philippines. And well, I guess Philippines wins with 300 projects and quite a value of PPP closed. We also compared the regulatory framework. And while Pakistan may sound better on paper, the need for government guarantee, which limit the appetite for the country. And I think, again, Philippines win. And the last one, I actually let you drive the conclusion, but I think I've already said Philippines as a more stable framework. So in conclusion, the Philippines has well-developed national and sectoral and local ecosystem. There's still a couple of issues to fix. The Philippine Development Plans 2023-2028 highlights the importance of PPP and the role to play in the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sector. As mentioned earlier, in the fishery, agribusiness, and agriculture and fisheries, this is the highest rate of cancellation of PPP. So how can we do that? So what we're proposing now is just to actually start with a brainstorming session to see what is possible, what has been done also in other countries, and how we can move forward. But before actually this panel, let me introduce you Usek Perez, who is going to present PPP initiative of the Department of Agriculture. So Usek Perez is the current Undersecretary for Policy, Planning and Regulation of the Department of Agriculture. Among his functions is to provide policy advice to the Secretary, as well as policy and planning support services to the various Department of Agriculture offices, bureau, and agency, particularly in policy formulation, planning, and project development. He has served as the Department of Agriculture Undersecretary for Fishery and Regulation, as well as Director of the Bureau of Fishery and Aquatic Resource. Usek Perez is a graduate doctor of veterinary medicine, a lawyer by profession, but most importantly, a hands-on farmer of rice, corn, coconut, fish, and livestock. Please welcome Usek Perez.
Oh, yes,
One, and then you change your, but I think you need to see if it's synchronized.
okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I forget to mention that I'm also happily married and a father of 3 and a grandfather of 1 child just recently. So, apologies, the title is a bit inappropriate because we don't have, as you mentioned, PPP initiatives in the agriculture sector now. What I hope to be able to discuss with you today is actually opportunities for PPP rather than initiatives for PPP. And so let me begin by telling you that, oh, it's not working. Can we go the next slide, please? All right. We have an idea of what needs to be done. We want to transform the agriculture sector into a robust, vibrant, economically viable, contributing to the food and economic security of this nation of 150 or 118 million people to date. Outlined before you is the list of programs and strategies which we believe will enable us to reach that direction. 4 of which we call core strategies, meaning expansion and making efficient our agri-fisheries area. We do have land and we do have water. The other one is to mechanize and modernize our agriculture system. We need to develop and improve our post-harvest infrastructure. To date, I can tell you that post-harvest losses alone is between 12 to 40% by volume, depending on the commodity. But what is not discussed in terms of losses is the value. You see, I happen to be from the fishery sector, so I know fish very well. If I caught a tuna today, fresh, I can easily sell it at 350 pesos per kilo. But in the afternoon, the value is down to maybe 100. So I already lost about 70% of the value simply because I don't have sufficient post-harvest facility. So this is not about volume, which is the normal way where we measure. We have to understand losses in terms of value. The same is true with perishable fruits and vegetables. The same story. And so we need to highlight that it is important to put investments on post-harvest if we have to put investments. The other one is we need to develop efficient logistics systems. And again, logistics is key to efficiency. If you bring corn from Cagayan to Bulacan, it will cost you probably 2 pesos per kilo. So a ton is 2,000 pesos. 10 tons is 20,000 pesos. And for you to produce pork, you need 4 kilos of corn. But if you develop a well-defined logistic systems, where instead of bringing corn, you bring the pork, then you already save easily, 8 pesos per kilo, because 1 kilo of pork is produced using 4 kilos of corn. And so we completely understand what needs to be done. And the other 6 are what we call cross-cutting strategies. This is to improve the market, because as you are aware, the only incentive for a farmer to produce is the reasonable certainty of return. And so that is the only reason for production. Our farmers will not produce because they are nationalists, nor because they love the Philippines. Reasonable certainty of return is the motivation and incentive. And so, therefore, we believe that developing the market is crucial. And when we say developing the market, it is both national and international market. We need to balance the developmental and regulatory function of the department. We've been criticized as a regulatory agency and less developmental. The secretary and myself, we both came from the private sector, and we understand the need for balancing regulation and development. We need to be as developmental and as regulatory as possible. Science and information should be the key to decision making. I always joke, Mr. Secretary, that in my office, the primary language should be mathematics, secondary is English. We have to look at the math. So, and the science. So I happen to be a veterinarian. My knowledge of science is at the cellular, even at the mitochondrial level. So we love science very much. We need to forge partnership between, of course, we understand that government does not produce food. it's the private sector. And therefore, we need to develop lasting, reasonable, and robust partnership with our sector. And that's why we have to maintain that tie with our sector. Kaya po pasensya na kayo, bakit kami defensive pagdating sa sector namin. Otherwise, if we don't inspire our sector to produce, why will they produce? So, and then we have to make available and accessible financial mechanisms. And this is where, of course, the bank comes in. When I was in Milan, you remember I made a pitch about certainly we know what to do, but our fiscal space is not that huge. But these investments must be put in place today, because the more you delay these investments, the more losses you incur. So I can go on and on and on and on and show you the numbers that if we do not do the investments today, we will be incurring losses day in, day out. Of course, research, development, and extension is also top of our agenda. Now, next slide, please. It here said, conceptually, we know, but do we have the resource to cover this requirement? Answer is not yet, but we hope that through this forum, we can generate that. It's only 3.51 trillion pesos, not in dollars. We have a breakdown of this investment requirement. A big part of it is in the production support, which is machinery, post-harvest, better rice mill. Right now, the average recovery of our rice mill is about, literature is saying 63%. But in reality, ground information, which I'm very familiar with, is much below that, probably 55 on the average. When the total recovery of a better machinery would be around 67 to 70%. See the losses, the huge difference. Another is logistics. We're looking at deep ports. You see, having been from the fishery sector, we're very familiar with shipping. And we know for a fact that when you bring commodity via the shipping lanes, it's more efficient. A 1,000 ton of goods can be brought to Manila using probably 1,500 horsepower engine. So just imagine if you're going to use the trucks. And so it is important to put the math in there. And also, logistics also requires us to look at connectivity with the farms. Sometimes our farms are situated in far-flung areas where there is no road access. But mind you, access does not mean road. I was talking to Secretary Singson. It can also be canals. And again, water is a better transport. And in the canals, you can actually use the canals as water impounding areas for irrigation during summertime. And so there are many ways to skin a cat, sort of. But the idea is that this new idea now can contribute to many PAPs, as we call them. So that can be transport, that can be water, that can even be fish when you have these canals. The commodity sector, of course, we have 805 billion. The innovation systems, enablers like, we're talking about digitalization, registration, things like that. A better, market systems using digitalized system, because, the problem often is that farmers who are in the far-flung areas are not able to effectively generate the value that they deserve simply because of lack of information. And so they become victims of people who are able to take advantage of them because of lack of information. And of course, sustainable and alternative agri-systems. This is where your climate resiliency will come in. This is where a dynamic and sustainable systems has to be in place. Like, for instance, in the case of rice, we're trying to do the alternate wetting and drying system, which saves about 30% of your gas emissions, for instance. We're looking at, in the poultry sector, controlling methane emissions, which is also the reason why many of our farms now are closing because of complaints from people. It's because of the odor and the methane and everything else. But that can also still be an area where investments can be made. So you have a better production, you arrest the gas, and of course, you maintain social peace in that sense. All right. And so these are just details. So I made, for irrigation, just to give you an example. We know that we can produce enough rice for this country because we still have 1.1 million hectares of irrigable land. At 5 tons, that's about, per hectare, that's about 5 million metric tons. And so, enough rice. But we don't have enough money for irrigation because it will cost us $1 million per hectare to irrigate. And we don't have that money yet because ADB has yet to commit to funding it. Huh? All right. Of course, logistics, I've discussed it already. Logistics covers like silos. What is logistics silo part of logistics? You see, if you're planting corn and your corn gets wet, the difference in value is 3 pesos already. Improper handling of these materials will tremendously reduce the value because of aflatoxin. I should know because I'm a veterinarian. So aflatoxin is a factor for determining price in corn, for instance. So it's important post-harvest and logistics. And then, of course, we need to reinvest on the poultry sector. We're importing 25% of our poultry products. We don't have enough eggs. We can produce eggs. We cannot import eggs, by the way. Difficult to import eggs because it will break and the source is far. And so, we need, looking at the nutrition level, the requirement, you need, how many eggs do you eat a day? 1 or 2, right? It should be 2. Okay. Now, times 115 million, that's easily 230 million eggs. We only produce 57 million eggs a day. So there's a huge area for expansion, and eggs is not difficult to produce. All it needs is an investment. See? So for those in the private sector, please produce eggs. And we need eggs because egg is the cheapest protein by kilo. Okay? Chicken, pork. We lost 35% of our hog population because of ASF. And so, again, this is a huge area for investment. But don't invest yet. Let's wait for the vaccine. Once the vaccine is here, then I will tell you, start investing. Because we have huge demand. Okay. And then again, I already mentioned this. We want to do innovation. We want to do, climate smart agriculture, because we're losing a lot simply because we failed to plant during the right time. And so, everybody has planted, everybody has invested, and here comes this typhoon. and other weather disturbances. Again, predictive, systems can help minimize that risk. All right, and of course, we're still looking at these alternative systems, quite costly, but this is good for urban setting, not in the rural setting. Now, the big gap and the big opportunity. I already told you the gap. So where's the opportunity? The opportunity now is you have a law. I mentioned this in Milan. We have the PPP law and the IRR. The secretary now has power to approve PPPs. Many of our LGUs are already, attuned to supporting agriculture because, by the way, we have 10 million farmers. Still 25% of our workforce. Although they are concentrated in areas far from Manila, they are sizable population. And most of our governors, local governments, would like to help them. It's only sometimes Manila does not want to help them because they are not voters of Manila. But the local officials, they wanted to help them. And it's an opportunity because the LGUs now has the power to approve PPPs. So that's an area for consideration. So I can go on and on and on and on. As I mentioned, as I introduced, I'm a farmer. I know farming by heart. I know fishing by heart. I know aquaculture by heart. And I have a family to feed. And today, last month, I had a grandson. I have to make sure that they're well fed. So thank you very much. And good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we now go to our panel discussion. Of course, let me welcome our esteemed panelists onto the stage and allow me to introduce you. Yes, so joining us again is our presenter from the Department of Agriculture, the Undersecretary for Policy Planning and Regulations, my classmate also in the Ateneo Law School, Attorney Asis Perez. Okay, our next panelist requires no introduction. He is a former Secretary of the Department of Public Works and Highways and was Chairman and President of the Basis Conversion and Development Authority. He served as President and CEO of Metro Pacific companies in the water, roads, railways, and energy PPP sectors. Among his many accolades, he was named the Management Association of the Philippines Management Person of the Year in 2024. He holds a degree in industrial engineering from the University of the Philippines and currently sits on the board of the Engineering and Development Corporation of the Philippines. Please welcome Mr. Rogelio Singson. And joining us from the Asian Development Bank are Ms. Tushna Dora and Eric Quencho. Tushna is a senior investment specialist and Southeast Asia lead for agribusiness investments in ADB's private sector operations. Tushna is responsible for origination, structuring, and execution of debt financings and equity investments into private companies across the food and agribusiness value chain. Tushna also leads technical assistance projects, which aim to further development impact to be delivered through the underlying financings to her clients. Prior to ADB, Tushna has worked in Rabobank and other international banks and covered commercial banking and trade products for food and agri corporates. So let us welcome Tushna. The next panelist is Eric. Eric is a principal water resources specialist at the Asian Development Bank. Eric has 25 years of experience advancing water security initiatives in Asia. He is leading preparation and implementation of investments in water resources, agriculture, fisheries, and rural development in Southeast Asia. Eric's career began as a hydraulic engineer, developing hydrodynamic models and information systems for design and operation and maintenance of irrigation and flood control infrastructure. He holds a Master of Science in Hydraulics and a Master of Science in Environmental Physics and Chemistry. A round of applause again for our panelists. Thank you. Yes.
Just introducing actually Christy, the senior partner of David Law, who helped on the monitor, and a round of applause for her, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Isabel. Okay, so just some key messages. The development of the agriculture sector and attainment of the country's food security requires huge financial and technical resources, which require effective collaboration between the government and the private sector. Synergy with other sectors such as road and rail transport, energy, ICT, and water and solid waste is also necessary. So the new PPP monitor has added agriculture as a priority PPP sector. The Philippine Development Plan, as mentioned by Isabel earlier, recognizes the role of PPPs in agriculture development, and among its strategy action plans for private sector participation are create and facilitate the adoption of modern production technologies for the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sector, and examine unique PPP transaction arrangements with the private sector, especially for the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sector. In line with this PDP agenda, the goal of the discussion is to explore opportunities for agriculture PPPs in the Philippines based on the country's priority needs and on what is needed for a robust agriculture PPP to encourage private sector participation. So my first question is for Tushna and Eric. So the PPP monitor reports PPPs in the agriculture sector as consisting of slaughterhouses, public markets, meat plants, irrigation and multipurpose projects, agro-industrial information technology parks, a national food hub, an animal production research and development center, an agricultural experimentation center, and agronomy farm laboratory. So what agriculture PPP models have you seen so far in other countries that you think may be replicated in the Philippines? Tushna, go ahead.
investment that advisors looking at, and one of them was in irrigation, irrigation specialists as well. We've been working around working on irrigation, especially on this creating models where government is what see on the regulatory side and model providing the legal basis for investment and really the model is also supporting farmers to move because at the end they need to pay for service for water and that's something that this model is so providing not only infrastructure but then supporting the farmers to access better input seeds, of course, agricultural services that help them to have better yields and really providing the support to access better market conditions that will again enable them the model to be provided financially. So that's something I'd be very pleased to observe this in the several months. See what's going.
Thank you, Tushna and Eric. So I guess it's contract farming, food distribution, and irrigation. And these are areas that we can explore also PPPs into. Maybe as a follow through on your presentation, Yusek Perez, and I guess you will just be repeating, but what does the country and the Department of Agriculture need maybe as a matter of priority to develop the agriculture sector with the goal of achieving food security for the country and for which private sector participation is necessary because, as you also mentioned, there is limited fiscal space in the government.
For the actual question is discussed. I think the priority because we have a PPP, but it's been there for the last 12 years and not a single PPP project. And so I remember when I was in Milan, that was my first request. Because I understand that ADB has the expertise on PPP, although not in agriculture, but in many other areas. But to put a system, like in the case of Secretary Simpson, you have a PPP service in the Department of I did my research, so what they did. But we don't have that. What we have is an ad hoc unit. And so we need to capacitate that with the necessary structure that will enable the PPP unit to function, to be a functional unit that can facilitate all of these PPP requirements. Because we're very young on this. Not me, but the PPP unit. Very young. So and so that's a priority, and also the creation of a policy environment that will make it happen would be number one on the agenda. As for the priority areas, I would go for post-harvest because it's a low-lying fruit, because you are already producing and you are preventing waste of what you are already producing. And then, of course, after post-harvest, the next one is working on the efficiency of production because you want to increase your production more efficient. And so that will be my first is capacitate the PPP unit. That's part of my agenda. I'll make sure that because my work is in the structure, more on the structural level, that we have a robust PPP unit. Number two is the policy framework. We will be so happy to learn from India, for instance. The one example that was given is because this is just being smart. You don't even have to put the money there. And then, of course, next in terms of actual project would be the post-harvest, and then, of course, we go to production efficiency component, which can be mechanization, irrigation, and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Perez. So the PPP Center is here, and they have been doing a good job in capacitating both all of the national government agencies and the LGUs. So there, they can help you, and ADB as well. Okay, so you mentioned post-harvest is an area that we can tap PPPs in, and maybe a reaction to that, Eric Tushna or Mr. Singson, on what PPPs you think might work for that area.
Do you want to start?
Go ahead. Tushna.
I think what is important, I mean, amongst all of the other things that have been mentioned, when we're looking at agri-sector PPPs, and even when we're designing market linkage, sections of the model, or when we're looking at post-harvest and food distribution models, ultimately, I think we all need to continue to consider that PPP models have to be in some way or form farmer-centric. That the need for capacity building, the need for training, the need for extension services is quite integral, and it needs to be part of the original thought and process that goes into then building whichever PPP model in whichever subsector that we talk about. So I think as far as agri is concerned, that's one thing that should always be part of the consideration.
Thank you. Any else a reaction? Okay, maybe we can go to the next topic, which is and for Tushna and Eric again, what do you think are needed for a robust PPP in agriculture based on what you have seen in other countries or even in the Philippines, and what worked and didn't work?
That's a very broad question.
Yes.
Well,
And you can answer the way you like it.
no, sure. No, actually, we are currently engaging with the Department of Agriculture, specifically on development or upgrading of fishing ports to food logistic facilities, and that's something we see a great potential for PPPs. There's been already some solicited proposal, but we see a great potential because that's also, we see direct benefits in cutting costs, as Yusek Aziz was mentioning, but also developing not only the infrastructure, but really an economic ecosystem around the port facilities for food processing, for research. You were mentioning about research. I went to Batangas a couple of months ago. That's the center of eggs of the Philippines. So how to bring all those eggs across the archipelago, and how to make logistic more attractive. And with the development of the north-south rain tracks, that's also, we see the connectivity, the big picture, to link the port facilities for example, Batangas, but other ports across Luzon to supply Manila, and ultimately food hubs that are like the one planned in New Clark City. So I think the big picture is also very important to give some confidence to investors and to see where the market will be, and already have also public investment completing the pieces of the puzzle.
Thank you, Eric. Tushna, do you have anything to add to that?
Not much more. I guess balanced risk sharing, legal access, certainty in policy frameworks. I mean, I think these are things that need to be the fundamental cornerstones of any PPP model that we build on.
Fully agree. Yes. Mr. Singson, you have managed companies involved in PPPs in the water, roads, and railway sectors, and have encountered, I imagine, many challenges along the way. So based on your experience in these PPPs, what do you think makes up a perfect PPP for agriculture? For example, in terms of risk allocation and government support, if necessary?
Yeah, thank you very much, Christy, and thank you for inviting me here. Actually, the successful PPPs that I have done, simply put, clarity of roles. You define clearly what the role of the private sector will be, what the role of government will be, and if ever there'll be a regulatory body, what the role of regulatory body will do. Now, of course, easier said than done. It might be a perfect PPP model, but at the end of the day, if government decides that increasing tariff on LRT is very political, it will defer because it's an election year. So, that could escalate. And the same is true with water. When we participated in the PPP in Maynilad, we had a very good concession agreement, but the government regulatory body decides, next year is election year, you can't raise water tariff. It's simply said. So that's why we have to work with how do we recover lost revenues, either increase tariff again or go for term extension. So, but having said that, it's difficult to have really a perfect PPP. The only perfect PPP I see is when we bidded Fort Bonifacio using government land. Ground Zero, that was a military base. And luckily for me, I was on the bidding side, government side. And the two other bidders were classmates of mine in LaSalle. One representing Metro Pacific Group, the other representing Ayala Corporation. And I told them, guys, we all came from the same school. The rules we already discussed, and this is the other important aspect. Most of all my PPP, we always did what we call market sounding. We don't issue the final terms of reference until you have an indication from the private sector that it is something that's acceptable to them. Okay, so market sounding, socializing, inviting who are the potential proponents that will be interested in your project, and discuss with them. These are the proposed terms of reference and rules of the game. Are you comfortable with this? Do you want some changes here? So don't even finalize. That to me was very important. So as far as the Fort Bonifacio is concerned, all the players already accepted the agreement. If they want, they will just sign the same day. It was that ready. You don't, after winning the bid, then you start negotiating. That's sure failure. And you could end up in jail as the government bidder. So clear roles and responsibilities, including socializing it or what we call market sounding. Now, my suggestion based on the presentation earlier, I think a government has enough resources. I'm sorry, I'm being very passionate about this specific area. You'll probably hear me in some of these television stations about water sector. Okay. One segment that's very important to the agriculture sector is what all of us should be talking about: integrated water resource management. It's not addressing just flooding. I have seen crazy proposals. I'm sorry, I hope it did not come from ADB. It's an ODA proposal that will create a major river in Pampanga that will throw all of that rainwater directly into Manila Bay. Don't you think that's a bit crazy? Why don't we retard that water, hold that water upstream so that you could use it for irrigation during the dry months, you could use it for bulk supply, you can even use it for tourism, and reduce the flooding on the major river basins. That's what we refer to as integrated water resources management. Very few understand this. Either I'm just on flood control or I'm just on bulk supply, or I'm just on deep well. It's not rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. And so we were just discussing earlier, why don't ADB, DA, and DPWH, NIA work together and address the flooding in Pampanga River? This is the second largest river basin in Luzon. The biggest catchment is Cagayan River. When I say Cagayan River, that's all the way from Cordillera all the way to the Pacific Ocean. When I say Pampanga River, it starts all the way from Candabas, all the way from San Antonio Swamp, merges portions with Bulacan River and ends up in Manila Bay. Why don't we work together and utilize the San Antonio Swamp and the Candaba Swamp and restore them as wetlands and utilize all of that water that you will need during dry months, and reduce the flooding in the process, and provide the much needed potable water that is sustainable for the whole Pampanga. Of those of you who are Kapampangans, I am sure your problem is potable water supply. You cannot rely on deep well. And I'm sorry to say some portions of your deep well in Pampanga are contaminated with arsenic.
Oh no.
I'm saying this, but people are telling me, don't say that in public. Right? But that's the reality, ladies and gentlemen. Why don't we adopt IWRM, Integrated Water Resources Management, as a program, as a policy, so that we address the flooding, we address food productivity, we address sustainable water supply. I was just telling Yusek, the cycle of destruction because of flooding is this. You have a river basin. Upstream, because of too much rainfall, the carrying capacity of the river is very limited. So you flood the rice fields, areas for food production. So all of that topsoil goes into the river. So what do the farmers do? Buy chemical fertilizer, inject, so that you can try to restore the productivity of the land. What about the next rainfall? The next flood, what happens to those chemical fertilizers? They now are washed into the river, and those chemical fertilizers now go to your fish sanctuaries, estuaries, and you destroy even your fisheries. So that's the cycle of destruction that I referred to. Unless we do an integrated water resources management, we will continue to experience this. The good news is there are funds in government. I just mentioned, I'm sorry, I get very passionate about this. I just mentioned, I stayed in DPWH for 6 years. I only spent 138 billion for flood management. We were able to address a lot of the flood-prone areas in Metro Manila, Maisilo, BGC, España, among others. 138 billion. 2025 budget for flood control, 350 billion. 1 year. And that has been going on for the last 4 or 5 years. And that's why the president even called the attention of Congress. Where is this flood control money going? To 15 contractors who are also members of Congress. So, ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, good luck.
Good luck to everyone. Thank you for those ideas, Mr. Singson. So You mentioned market sounding earlier. That's an important addition to the PPP code. It's integrated there, and I think the PPP Center will ensure that that will be effective for developing projects. And so integrated water resources management is very important for agriculture and can also be very relevant to flood control, right? Which is, our big problem nowadays. Okay, maybe just a segue to Yusek Perez. If you can just, I know you've mentioned this, maybe just briefly mention what the government is now doing to attract private sector participation in agriculture. You mentioned like agriculture insurance and all of that, and maybe also expound on the reforms, policy reforms that the DA is now pursuing.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Secretary Babes for giving me a very, very clear way forward not to go to jail in the future. Make the sounding board and make the contract very clear. And I think that's actually the crux of our policy reform initiatives. Making sure that the public is properly consulted, there's proper sounding, and that the policies will really redound to the benefit, not only of the farmers, but the entire country. Because this requires a lot of balancing thing. So I think that is the general direction. I can go on and on and on. Just to give you an idea, my office used to come up with 2 or 3 policies a year. But now I'm doing about 10 plus major laws as well. So it's been a busy year for us. We are now reviewing many of our policies, making sure that unnecessary requirements, for instance, are not there, and that trade is facilitated, and that unnecessary requirements that pose barrier to any transaction is minimized. We are also, and in relation to this PPP, for instance, I forget to mention that we have developed a new concept, and this is not just PPP. It is PPPP. Because unlike a regular PPP where you have the government and the private sector working, in the agriculture sector, it has to be the private sector, the government, and the farmers working together. And that is the public, the people themselves. And so we will, as we move forward with the development of our own PPP initiatives and policies, we will be mindful that in the agriculture PPP, it cannot be PPP. It should be PPP and P. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek, for your service to the nation. So PPP, that is. Okay, yes, sir. Go ahead.
I think I'm just posing a challenge to ADB to work on the Candaba swamp. I hope we get a response.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I guess my last question would be for Tushna and Eric. What is ADB doing to help develop the agriculture sector and increase private sector participation?
I'll take first. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So we are increasing our engagement with the department, and we are currently looking at investing in smallholder irrigation system development and solar pump system, solar power pump system, but also looking at developing pipe irrigation system, so more closed system, that something that might be of interest for the private sector. Expanding on port facilities, as I mentioned, and this is where we have entry point for PPP, and Secretary Laurel is very keen on this. And last not least is in the aquaculture sector. I will not preach Yusek Assis, but Philippines was probably the leader in the 80s, 90s for aquaculture around the world. And that's something we'll be very keen to put back the Philippines on the global maps. I mean, aquaculture has many entry points for private participation. It's very profitable in terms of revenues, and of course, it's providing a lot of protein Filipinos and people in general. So that's what we are looking at for now, our engagement with the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That's good. I hope we can be the best again. All right. I think you have anything to add?
Well, in addition to the work that Eric and many of our other colleagues in sovereign operations are doing with the department on upstream and midstream segments, the downstream segment as a financier is where ADB's private sector operations comes into play. ADB's agri private sector operation aims to work with food and agri conglomerates across the food and agri value chain, from seeds to supermarkets is how we call it. And you would have heard DG Sir Vinny's address, in which he mentioned a project with Dali, for example, which is on food retail and food distribution. But we go way back into all of the processing subsectors and then farm inputs. In the Philippines, particularly, we're looking at a lot of interesting ideas in fruit and vegetable processing, animal protein, cold storage opportunities, which will hopefully, spur and sort of tie in the discussion on PPP front as well. So yeah, we're looking forward to strengthening our endeavors in private sector finance in the food and ag value chain in the Philippines.
Very good. Thank you, Tushna. So that wraps up our panel discussion. Sorry, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Yusek.
Because I have not made my pitch yet. It will be a lost opportunity. Secretary Singson and I really supports each other view that we need to have an integrated water management. There are currently 2 priority areas, actually 3 priority areas that we would like to focus our energy on. And one was mentioned already, the Candaba Swamp area. The other one is the Agusan area. And the other one is the Bicol River Basin. If we can only manage the water in the river, in the Bicol River Basin, then we can be able to plant twice a year, 3 times a year. That's a lot of products. We hope that there'll be an appetite soon for the bank to consider this, request. And because I'm with the side of Secretary Babes, this can be an endeavor between his group and ours. I mean, and that would be a perfect match facilitated by ADB. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek. So I think the integrated water resources management is also a priority of the Philippine government now. Yes, with also NIA. So that would be good. Okay, thank you to our panelists. Thank you very much for sharing your time, your thoughts and ideas. I hope we can continue this conversation and see a good number of viable agriculture PPPs soon. Thank you.
Let me call now Rosemary Ong, who also in the Office of Market Development and PPPs on the transaction advisory side. Rosemary.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Isabel. So, how do I do this? Okay. So this afternoon, I'll walk you through very briefly some of the key benefits of PPP in accelerating PPPs in the Philippines, and provide an understanding of what ADB's Office of Markets Development can do, how we can help, especially government institutions in PPPs, as well as a selection of our ongoing projects under implementation. Sorry. Next slide, please. Okay. Next slide. Okay. In accelerating PPP projects, there are a few benefits for PPP projects. First is catalyzing private investment. By crowding in private investments into the Philippines, into PPP projects, the Philippines can accelerate its infrastructure development beyond public funding. Then we also have the harnessing of private sector innovation, as well as expertise in operation and maintenance of infrastructure assets. Particularly, this incentivizes life cycle efficiency. Then we have strategic capital reinvestment. This is particularly for brownfield projects that have been monetized. And also risk transfer. So as you know, in PPPs, there is significant risks that have been transferred traditionally being borne by the private sector that will be transferred to the private sector based on precedent transactions. And this has been very efficient in managing risk and allocating them to the parties best able to manage them. Now, how can ADB help? As most of you may have known, we provide transaction advisory services as well as markets developments. Now, for transaction advisory, I think one of the cornerstones of our assistance is really to do a very thorough, comprehensive project preparation. And this is to ensure that we have a bankable project. Now, I think Secretary Singson mentioned about market sounding. That is one of the cornerstones of PPP's, of ADB's PPP transaction advisory services. We do have a wide range, a wide reach of private sector parties involved in market sounding, and we engage with the private sector at every critical stage of the transaction life cycle. This is not only to elevate and to amplify awareness in the project during the preparation stage, but also to solicit some of the feedback from private sector, both local and international players. We, of course, assist in forging a bankable risk allocation. And again, this is with the interaction or interface with private sector during our market sounding or market engagement process. We also help develop bid documents for the agencies that we work with. And entrenched in our project preparation work is really capacity building for our government clients. Now, on the tender process, we also assist in managing the entire tender process in accordance with the PPP Code. We help organize and facilitate bid conferences, as well as the bidder one-on-one, which is again a very critical part of an established and a successful PPP framework. Having the opportunity, providing the opportunity by government to clarify what is in the bid documents, specifically in the specifications and the concession agreement. Last but not least, we also provide support in contract award through to contract monitoring. And this is, again, a very important engagement by ADB, where we provide support during the monitoring of transactions, particularly to ensure commercial close and financial closure is achieved. Next slide, please. ADB also offers a comprehensive modalities to support PPPs across across 4 pillars within the bank. First, we have advisory and capacity development that is in collaboration with our sovereign team and OMSF colleagues. Then we also have creating the enabling environment, and this is very critical in further developing PPPs in any jurisdiction. And even in the Philippines, there still are a few challenges that needs to be overcome, and creating this enabling environment where PPP can further thrive is very critical. Pillar 3 is project development, and this is the transaction. This is particularly on transaction advisory, assisting. We are also very keen to assist on pathfinding projects in the Philippines, and I'll give you a rundown of the projects under implementation that we are currently working on. Fourth would be project financing, and I think Tushna touched upon this. This is by our private sector operations department. Next slide, please. So I have a list of, yes, next slide, please, of current projects or ongoing projects that ADB is advising on. First is the CBK project, or Carilaya Botocan Kalayaan Hydroelectric Project. And congratulations to the team. We have achieved commercial closure yesterday on this project. This is being led by Aboitiz and Sumitomo. This is on 796 megawatt complex with pumped storage facilities. Next is the North-South Commuter Rail Project. This is a 147-kilometer railway that connects Manila to Clark, cutting travel time. Now, the team will be actually traveling overseas for a range of market sounding. Again, that is a key deliverable of ADB for our transaction advisory services. They just received NETA board approval for this, so we hope to launch within the year. Third is the Metro Manila Subway Project. This is 36-kilometer subway system that is also in project preparation stage. Fourth is the New Clark City Information Technology Communications Project, or ICT. This contemplates providing an open access to internet service providers to avoid any duplication in investments. Then we have the Bundled Regional Airports Project that is also under project preparation. This encompasses airports across the archipelago from Luzon, 3 airports in Luzon, that is Lawag, Bicol, and Busuanga, Bacolod and Tacloban in Visayas, and Jansan in the south, or in Mindanao. Then we have the floating solar projects on national irrigation assets. There are 2. These projects are designed to provide a multi-purpose use for the irrigation assets by NIA. And 2 of the potential sites are Pantabangan in Luzon and Halaur in Iloilo. We also have the Davao Public Transport Modernization Project, which is expected to replace existing informal public transport for more efficiency. And this will also have some interface with another project of ours, which is the Automated Fare Collection System, or the AFCS, which covers a multimodal transport options, allowing interoperability across these modes. We also have the PPP for schools infrastructure. This project aims to narrow the gap and ease the gap for classrooms development. And our mandate is to provide about 16,000 classrooms within Luzon. We are also doing work with DANR on carbon markets development. So that completes my presentation. Thank you.
So we are reaching the end of the event, and we are now at the closing activity before the cocktail. So we're inviting Sir Ricote, the Deputy Executive Director of the PPP Center, to join us for the closing remark.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We're listening to Rose. I thought she's gonna have a longer list of that. I know there's a lot more. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for staying the last 2 days. No, 2 days. As we conclude this 2-day activity, we express the PPP Center is grateful for this work, this collaboration with our partners. First, our longtime partner, ADB, Asian Development Bank, particularly Director General, Mr. Wicklin, the ADB Southeast Asia Division, our partner, of course, OMDP. OMDP, I'm not just used to calling you that. Sanay ako dun sa old name. No? Thank you, Rose, and the rest of the team. As you know, we're working closely with them. A lot of projects being done together. The PSOD, Private Sector Operations Development Department as well. Thank you. And I'd like to mention as well the country office, PAVIT. Thank you very much. We've a lot of work together with ADB and its various units. The PPP Center having evolved over the years with Asian Development Bank support as early as 2010. The ADB PPP monitoring tool, which we've helped them put together, will obviously be a resource for all of us, policymakers, all our stakeholders, and watching very closely in the way this PPP program is evolving, not just in the Philippines, but in the region. To our presenters, panel members, moderators, and training team, thank you for being here today and for gracing this activity and in saying yes to our invitation. Special mention to Secretary Singson. Alam na si Sir. Sir, it's been Sir, salamat po. We've been working with Secretary Singson on our PPP for the last 3 decades, sir, no? Yusik Perez and our partners from Tabidilo, maraming salamat. Thank you. To the local officials, LG officials attending here, thank you so much. I was told we have Jensan, Bataan, Quezon City, Manolo Fortich, in Bukidnon, Iloilo, La Union, what else? Ilocos Norte and Cavite. This and I think almost 50 plus more LGUs we're helping with, and we're all over the place helping them with their numerous PPP initiatives. I just came back from a long presentation on a series of PPP briefings for newly elected officials. It's a lot more than 100 mayors and governors wanting to understand PPP and do PPPs in their numerous locations. And we've been saying to them, there's a lot of resources available, ADB, the PPP Center. Obviously, the objectives of this 2-day session has been successfully achieved. The capacity building we did in the first session, my PPP team is here, capacity building. This is not the last time. We'll be talking to them. We have a cap dev team here, a technical assistance team, the PDMF committee is here as well, or the PDMF team. Our project development officers are here. For the ADB PPP monitor launch, thank you so much. We are very happy with this resource, which will hopefully inform our national local stakeholders on the many things that's happening in this PPP program. The main features of the tool, including our ability to compare and contrast indicators, look at lessons from previous projects, those in the pipeline. Very rich resource. I invite you to look at that resource alongside with the Philippine PPP program dashboard. It's clickable in our website. This brings you to this very rich resource called PPP Dashboard. It includes all PPP projects all over the country. Status, private partner, contact, everything that you'll need is in there, all in the spirit of transparency. So I won't say much anymore, but thank you so much. Very productive 2 days. Obviously, the PPP that we all have been saying is not just about public and private sector getting together, partnering with each other, but the partnerships in all other aspects, institution, collaboration, dialogue, making all resources available, all the help available from the ADB, from PPP Center, and all other stakeholders, ready as we all partner with each other in helping our clients, LGUs, and agencies. Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat. Good afternoon.
So let me welcome now the last speaker, and actually the new head of our department, the Office of Market Development and PPPs, Takeo. Welcome to the team and welcome now.
Thank you, Isabel. And then good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, particularly Secretary Simpson and then also Undersecretary Perez. Thank you so much for all the insightful contribution at the panel. And then good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's launch of the PPP, PPP Monitor for the Philippines. We've had very insightful discussions on the growing opportunities for PPPs in the Philippines, as well as the government's continued commitment and then ideas to mobilize private investment in support of the national development goals. Today we had, as you saw, we had a dedicated session for agriculture. Agriculture remains a cornerstone of inclusive growth and food security in the Philippines. In May this year, the ADB announced its plan to total funding for food security initiatives up to $40 billion over the period of 2022 to 2030. PPPs have to be a part of this conversation, and then we are working with the government to identify ways to enhance private sector participation in this space. To be honest, I mean, this is still also a new area for us, and then we will be very happy to explore the new approaches and then concept. And then also, as they already introduced and by my colleague Rosemary, Philippines has been the country where we have the largest track records of advising on PPPs. And then we have been actively supporting a range of PPP initiatives across different sectors. And then some of them have been already introduced, and then also we had very remarkable milestone yesterday for signing a CBK hydropower plant. So these are high impact investments designed with the bankability, resilience, and then sustainability in mind. And we are confident that many of you here, including sponsors, financiers, and partners, will be the key players in bringing them to life. We are strongly committed, we remain committed to working with the Philippine government, PPP Center, and then also all the implementing agencies to advance high quality climate resilient infrastructure projects. We will continue to provide transaction advisory services, capacity building support, and then project preparation through mechanisms such as the PDMF and then also targeted technical assistance. We hope to basically unlock all the private investment across sectors and then deliver real results to the communities across the countries in collaboration with the government, as well as all the private sector investors and then financiers. Before we conclude, I'd like to also express my sincere appreciation to the PPP Center, also Department of Agriculture, various departments of the government of the Philippines for their leadership and then collaboration. The implementation agency is working very hard behind the scenes to bring projects forward, and our colleagues from the private sector who bring vital resources, innovation, and then long-term commitment to the table. We hope today's conversations have inspired new partnerships, new ideas, and then a renewed momentum for the future PPPs in the Philippines. And then last but not least, I'd like to also express my kind of appreciation to the team, including Isabel, and then also her team in, of course, preparing this PPP Monitor itself, but then also organize today's event and then inviting all this, big audience here. Thank you so much again for your participation, and then we look forward to working together on the exciting opportunities ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, so this is close. I'm just saying we're going to have a picture if you want to come, or we can, or like photo time, no? I mean, we don't have to do it, but if you want a photo, we can do it. That's otherwise Otherwise, I just wanted to, I don't know, are we do it here like that? Otherwise, one more thing is that I mean, you may have learned from ADB, and we've actually learned from the Philippines. And we, from what I understand, we became one of the best bakery of Manila for crinkles. So you'll find a box hopefully waiting for you. I mean, we have 70 of them, so first in, first serve, I guess.
Yes, the last 3 rows, please stand.